So my question, Nathan, last time you were talking about how in the surrounding areas there's only so many counties that require a well and septic test in a home sale. And I'd like you to remind me, please, what counties those are.
Mhm.
If we could get started with that very briefly.
Sure, no problem at all. Initially, we only had Shiawassee County. They were the first back in 2001 when our good friend Gene Paz retired from the state government and went immediately to become the director of the Shiawassee County Health Department within about a year. But he got his pet program started in 2001, and Shiawassee was first, and then Ingham came on in 2006, and then in 2007, Eaton came on. And as most of you, I'm not going to talk about other counties. I think Ottawa has a program, and Oakland did at one time, but they're out of our marketing area. So um, as most of you are aware, in 2018, in the summer, there was a hubbub and a move to rescind the Eaton County program in Barry and Eaton County. And sure enough, the dissenters were able to get a 9-7 commissioner position, and the Eaton and Barry County programs were terminated. So we ain't got anything. They did a great job for 11 years. We caught so much yucky stuff. You guys wouldn't believe what the atrocities that we ran into. I won't get into it now, but a lot of really important and significant stuff was discovered. But nonetheless, the Eaton County program was terminated in July of 18. So all we have now is Shiawassee and Ingham, where they do require the mandated well and septic point of sale inspection. And as you guys also are aware, it's pretty thorough in Ingham, a little bit easier in Shiawassee, and a little bit cheaper in Shiawassee.
Thank you, Nathan.
Mm.
Last time we talked, you mentioned how lucky we are in this state, in this area, to have such good quality water. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you could tell us some of the issues or maybe some of the bad things that you find around these parts that our agents should be looking out for, whether they're new agents or seasoned agents.
I think that's a really good topic. You know, we are so fortunate that we live on a beautiful aquifer. It's called the Saginaw Formation, and that's where 97% of all of our wells terminate. Around 140 to 250 feet is probably takes in the vast majority of the wells in our marketing area. And we've got a really nice aquifer, but there are some that are shallower, and there's certain pockets where that you guys are well aware, where you run into some pretty fragrant and let's just say scented water. Smells a lot like sulfur, or people look at each other in the kitchen and you wonder what's going on. But all of it's healthy. It's aesthetically displeasing, but all of it can be treated. So always encourage your clients, even if they're city slickers. And sorry about the cat here. Um, Even if they're used to city water, and I always tell clients, give yourself 30 days, 60 days in your new home coming from city water to go to your well, because you need to get used to it before you spend a bunch of money treating things that really are not a concern. But to me, for you guys, the biggest thing is arsenic. You know, the lead issue has really kind of disappeared because there's no specific sampling protocol for real estate transactions for a lead test. Just telling you guys that. I mean, an official regulatory lead test for, say, a city or a mobile home park or something like that, they have to let that water stagnate for at least 8 hours prior to collecting the sample. And then they have to put it straight into the bottle without flushing the faucet or anything. So it's a measure of how much lead the pipes are putting into the water. That's kind of how it should get done, but there's no protocol in real estate. So as you guys know, we flush. We're running water all over the house, and we are able to collect a sample for lead right out of that flushed system. So it really is kind of stupid. But Lead is never in the groundwater, not in our state. I would say that in the state of Michigan, based on all the testing that I did while I was at DEQ from 1990 to 1997, I was running the mobile home park water program, and there is no lead in Michigan groundwater, zero. So all of the lead that comes through is put into it from the pipes and the machines and the pumps and all the things that we use to get the water up into our homes. Um, that's what causes all the lead contamination. The other biggie that you cannot avoid is arsenic. And many of you have probably run into arsenic problems, especially in Ingham County. Our heart, our center of our marketing area, does have a specific rule for arsenic concentration. So where are the hot spots in Ingham County? They are Dansville. If you are anywhere within about, God, I'm going to say 5 miles of Dansville or northeast of Dansville toward Williamston, that is a hot spot. And the other hot spot is Okemos Hazlet. So we do have a population center that is right smack in the middle of our worst arsenic concentration. So there are areas out in Hazlet and Williamston that will exceed the limit established in the state of Michigan, and that is 10 parts per billion. It doesn't sound like much, but nobody wants to drink arsenic. Now, me, I could drink 200 gallons a day of arsenic tainted water. It's not going to make a difference in my life, but we don't want small children or pregnant gals or anyone immune suppressed or skinny and old like me to drink a lot of arsenic. So we test every well for arsenic in Ingham County. The others we don't test at all because they don't care. But the arsenic hotspots are probably your biggest concern from a real estate standpoint, because the remedy for it is putting in a reverse osmosis filtration system. And the county, of course, requires one when the seller is faced with that scenario. Bacterial quality is uniform everywhere. There's no regional differences there. Nitrates, those are the other thing we test for all the time, a very basic one. I can't tell you anywhere in Ingham County. Let's see, I got to think for a second. Plains Road in Eaton Rapids, that's a hot spot. There are just 2 or 3 little select areas around Ingham County where you might run into nitrate. So that is really not a giant concern either. I'm just going to go back to the statement that we are so fortunate. We don't have a lot of yucky stuff or weird stuff in our water. It's all naturally occurring and can be readily treated. So probably there's no required lead testing anywhere. We don't have to do that. Lenders do sometimes. If you got a FHA or a VA or a RD loan, you want to always check with the underwriter and see what package of water tests they need. But often they will call for a lead test. And it's kind of crazy because they don't set a protocol for the testing, and we're able to submit a flushed sample. But can you guys, or do you have any specific questions with regard to water test parameters or areas in our marketing area? I don't know, maybe you could relay that to Amanda on the board if you have any follow-up questions in that regard. Or Amanda, if I've forgot anything important in my ramble, bring me back.
Not a problem, Nathan. If you have questions, please throw them up in the Q&A or comment on Facebook. We are watching those and we are happy to throw them Nathan's way. So far, nothing has come up. So I don't know if you want to do an overview of what a test exactly looks like. I know that was one of the hot topics that we talked about yesterday, or no, I'm sorry, not yesterday, last time we were.
Do you mean as far as the inspection protocol, or what type of samples I would normally grab?
Right, for when you're out on a well or septic inspection.
Well, I'm just going to concentrate on Ingham County. Now we do get into Clinton, and we get into Jackson, and we go to Livingston, and of course we're in Eaton County a lot. with Waverly Road being our divider. Eaton County is kind of like half our marketing area. So Eaton County's back to the Wild West. We can do anything we want, and the participants in the transaction are in charge. That's kind of nice and constitutional, I think. But at any rate, so Ingham and Shiawassee are the only ones that mandate stuff. So when we're in Ingham, we have to take bacteria and nitrate and arsenic, those three things. In Shiawassee, it's identical. They have those exact three parameters. Outside of Shiawassee and Ingham, what we have to do is only bacteria and nitrate. Any additional water testing parameters would be imposed by the lender or requested by the client. And sometimes they have curiosity items that they want checked for, and that's not a problem. Usually just adds a little bit to the inspection fee, and that's about it. I always encourage everybody to check with the lenders. If we have a lender involved in the process, always get the water testing directions and list from that lending underwriter, and that's certainly your best source for that. But we're lucky here in Lansing because we have the state lab right here, and that is the #1 premier lab in the state of Michigan right at our disposal in Lansing. And if you guys ever need a complete water testing catalog from the state lab, that is available online, or you can call me, and I have most of them pretty well memorized. But we can test for anything we want here in the Lansing area without any real hassle. So back to the original question: bacteria, nitrate, and arsenic. That's generally about it. Well, okay. I seem to be offline here. Let's see.
No questions
Oh, there we are.
yet, Nathan. We're here, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I really wanted to talk about a couple of items. If nobody's asking questions, I want to talk about should the real estate professional suggest to a seller at the time of a listing interview or listing presentation, should the well and septic issue be broached at that time? And I personally say absolutely. I mean, if you're making a good presentation, you need to have the clients be aware of everything that they're facing and going to have to do as far as the regulations. So I assume everybody would say, yeah, you guys, you got to do a well and septic here in this county. Well, then the next natural question for the client is, well, when do we do it? When do we have to spend this money? You mean we have to throw out $600-700 to get this done? We don't want to do that now. We want to wait. Well, I have a couple of suggestions as to why you might suggest to them that it'd be better not to wait. I have never met anyone who does a listing presentation and says, well, it might take a year to sell your house. No. We know we're going to market this property and it's going to happen as quickly as we can. So we want it to move right along, especially in today's market. You guys know the minute it hits the hot sheet, you got 5 calls. So at any rate, encourage your clients to get the well and septic point of sale done early. And you say, well, why? Why would we want to do that if we don't have an offer? Well, because we know in all counties, they're good for 1 year. And we're certainly going to sell this house in 1 year. The next important thing is that there's no surprises. Does every seller know the total perfect condition of their well and septic? Do they know everything about them? I suppose sometimes they do. If the house was built in 2012, I mean, we can be pretty cocky about the well and septic and, proceed to list it and market it without any well and septic being done. But if that thing was built before, I'm just going to say before 1990, 30 years old or greater, that well and septic should be done as early as you guys can get them to pull the trigger. That way, you know what's going on. There's a potential for a big equity loss that no seller was planning on if they don't anticipate some of this stuff. So a new well is like $7,500, and a new septic system, as you know, can range from $75,000 to $20,000 depending on the conditions that we're looking at. So I feel, and it's not because I need work. Good Lord, you guys, I'm booked out till I think the 13th of July now. But anyway, I say that to protect your clients and to keep you in the professional mode by getting this required stuff done in an early and efficient manner, because that way everybody knows where we stand. So I encourage the well and septic point of sale in both Shiawassee and Ingham to be done right after the listing is made. As soon as you get that puppy listed, let's make sure that well and septic is done. There's 3 or 4 of us that are doing work. God willing, in the next year, maybe I get to go on to consulting only or something. I don't know. But me, Mike Johnson, Dwayne King, I heard Danny Carlton has been pretty active lately. But there's not very many of us. So if you want to keep your timetable moving, I would just strongly suggest getting on the point of sale early in the listing. And now I'm going to shut up for a second. Oh, I see Karen's question here. The well and septic inspection approval, the report lasts forever if they don't throw it away, but the approval is good for 1 year. Okay. So go ahead, Amanda.
That is the only question that we have so far, Karen's question.
Okay.
I think you just covered
Yep.
it pretty well.
Very good. Yeah, I just typed it into. Yeah, they're good for a year. So we got plenty of time to get the place sold. Now, here's another nice thing that the county's nice about, and both counties do it. Let's say that your listing does go past 1 year before we get an accepted offer. If that point of sale expires, both counties offer a extension, a 1 year extension, and it costs anywhere from about 100 to 180 bucks. But what they do, what's called a walkover, and sometimes they don't even bother. If they believe that conditions are the same, let's say it's vacant and it's been vacant for the whole time on the market, they won't even go out. But if it's been occupied for the entire time, they might go out and just do a quick walkover and make sure everything is the same, but they will issue a 1 year extension. So beyond the official 1 year approval, in both counties, we can get an extension for a small, well, not small, but a fee. Okay, so that's a good thing. The other thing I wanted to cover with you guys is something that very few of our real estate professionals and inspectors are really aware of. First, I want to look at some definitions of septic systems. Okay, the first one is very unusual and very expensive and used in areas that are really tough that probably would have been denied, and those are called sand filters. If you ever run into a septic system that incorporates the use of a sand filter, that terminology, that fact right there, sucks you into a mandatory maintenance and inspection contract with a local engineering firm. And there's only 2 or 3 of them that are any good and popular. So we have the sand filter, and there's one other kind of system that is very more commonly used now. And if we were back and forth dialoguing, I would ask anyone out there, do you know what the initials ATU, like Apple Trampoline Umbrella, ATU? If you run into a ATU system, it puts you into the contract obligation, just like the sand filter. An ATU is aerobic treatment unit. So all it does, it's a little box that sits on the side of the people's house or out by the drain field and goes all day long. It's pumping air into a tank. So there's an air bubble tank incorporated in the septic system to oxygenate the wastewater before it's put into the ground, and usually associated with a mound system. But so those are the 2 that in Ingham County, Ingham's the only one that does this. Fancy systems in other counties, hey, it's your problem or our problem. But in Ingham County, they do not trust anyone, and they make the seller have a contract with one of the people on our approved engineering list. The 2 that I see most often utilized are A, Wolverine Engineering out of Mason for Central and South Ingham County, and Stevens Consulting Service in Hazlet for the north part of the county, pretty much. Stevens Consulting, it's Stephen's, if anybody's writing down Stevens. But Larry Stevens, he's the engineer, and his son Mike, they run the shop and take care of those. And Wolverine Engineering, you'd want to talk with a guy named Matt Moore. At any rate, the county has changed those requirements. You still have to have, in order to pass a point of sale inspection, you must have active, in force, a contract with one of those engineering firms for maintenance, annual maintenance and inspection. I want to let you guys know that formerly it was a minimum 3-year contract. Well, if a seller is leaving, they're not very happy having to pay for a 3-year contract when they're not even going to get a year out of it, right? So they did change it. Meredith, she's our new Meredith Gregory. That's the name of the new supervisor for water, poop, and dirt at Ingham County. And she's a really nice gal, Meredith Gregory. And let me just, for those that are on here, I'll give you her phone number so you have it in your reservoir. It's 517-887-4527. That's her desk. And she's very active supervisor. She welcomes calls. She loves to talk. She's really smart. So anytime you have a supervisory question for Ingham County, I would, if it's in our well and septic category, I would encourage you to call Meredith Gregory. She's a real good egg. I like having her for our new supervisor. She's kind of green, but she's a really good person. So you can always get with her. Back to the ATUs and sand filters. You'll know when you get one. So it's beyond a mound system. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So if you find out that you've got a sand filter or an aerobic treatment unit, the next thing to ask the client is, oh, do you have your maintenance and inspection contract active? You're going to find that nobody does. Excuse me. Nobody ever keeps them active. Every new buyer that has one, I've never met one that renewed the contract once they bought their house, and they are not enforcing it. So they're not going out and trying to be the ATU contract police. If they're catching them on the point of sales. So whenever we do a sale, we better make sure that we've got one of those magic contracts with one of those special systems. Anything else?
Nathan, what if a seller doesn't have a contract?
Well, if they don't, they need to provide one. And they go to one of the firms on the list of approved engineering firms that do this. And they now are allowed, fortunately, to obtain a 1-year agreement. So the seller, having been derelict in having a contract, even though they probably knew when they bought it or when it was installed, is generally required to get it. But I'm sure it's a negotiated item. If the buyer stepped up and said, oh, no, let me pay for that, and I want the contract in my name for the next year, no problem. That'll work also. And I also want to add that, let's say we're in the middle of an inspection process on this house that has one of these special systems and they don't have a contract. We need to not only secure the contract, but we have to have the engineering firm do the annual inspection. So not only do you have to have Nathan out doing his thing, but we have to get the engineering firm to come out and run through their inspection protocol for the year of the sale. So you have to have the contract and you have to have the first inspection completed. But that's not extra money. I mean, they do it. We just have to get the engineer out there as soon as that contract is consummated. So that is what was kind of bugging me about the fancy systems, because lately I've run into several agents that had no idea that these sand filters and aerobic treatment units require a maintenance and inspection contract.
Nathan, how many of those do you think are in the area?
Probably running less than 5%. So less than 5 out of 100 homes. So they're not prevalent. You're not going to just run in them. See Karen's question here. What exactly is a sand filter? It is a method of taking what's in a septic tank or what's in the final chamber of the septic tank. We're not going to get solid materials out of there, but a regular septic tank, when it's untreated, it works kind of like a daisy chain. If you flush the potty, 5 gallons goes in the front end of the tank and 5 gallons comes out the other end. All right. So we hope that what's coming out of the other end is just not nice water, but mostly liquid without any solid material in it. But there's always some suspended solids, and there's lots of hungry bacteria and organisms that are in this liquid that comes out of the first tank. Well, okay, normally that would go right into the ground, right into the drain field, and it still has a very high BOD, BOD. That's biological oxygen demand. In other words, the juice that's coming out of the end of that septic tank is rich. Man, it needs oxygen to continue to be treated. And it's difficult when you're underground in the earth to get a lot of air. So it tends to cause a lot of black organic material to form in the drain field without the additional treatment. So some scientist at some point got the brainy idea that, if we filter this juice with sand, we're going to remove all of the particles and all of the organic material that's in the water. And then when that juice hits the earth, it will be all oxygenated and all the bacteria and viruses and stuff in it will be all happy when they go in the ground. And therefore the earth, the dirt, will accept that wastewater better and not form a bunch of black yucky because it's already been removed and it's in the sand filter. So that's what the sand filter does. It's basically a giant box. Usually, and this is a big one, but minimum size is 12 by 12 feet. So it's 12 feet wide, 12 feet tall. Normal one's 20 by 20 for a normal home, but they're about 8 to 10 feet deep with layers of sand and different product that I'm just going to refer to it, liquid drains down through this constructed box to an opening in the bottom, which goes into a small pump chamber, which either runs it right to the drain field from there or all the way back into the septic tank to go through again, or a portion a portion goes to final disposal and a portion goes back into the septic tank to run it through again. And that one is called a recirculating sand filter, where half of the juice goes back in for another trip through the system and half goes into final disposal. Or it could be called a single pass sand filter. So there's two kinds. There's single pass and whatever I said, repeating sand filter goes back in. So I haven't had enough coffee, I don't think. But at any rate, that's what sand filters are. So they're just kind of fancy and a little bit more than the normal inspector can handle in the field. I mean, if you're a licensed health inspector and been doing water, poop, and dirt for 50 years, you tend to know some of this stuff. But there's folks out there that have never even seen a sand filter, and they're actually doing well in septic inspections. So anyway, engineered septic system, just briefly, yes. Anything that requires electricity, okay? Anything you got to plug in. I love gravity, Karen. You can't break it. You know, you flush the potty, it goes into the septic tank. Gravity carries it from the septic tank down a pipe into the field, into the drain field. Simple, simple. No gadgets, nothing breaks. So engineered systems, to me, are when you introduce electricity. If you have to use power in any way, shape, or form, for a filter, for an aerator, for a pump, for anything, then it becomes, and I'll put my air quotes around it, an engineered septic system. So anything beyond gravity. And I don't have any other topics. If you guys want to pull something out to talk about. I'm way into it. So whatever you guys want to do. I
Are
took the
there, Nathan, are there certain areas around here where sand filters would be more common?
Yes, in areas that have been previously denied. Let's say you've got this awesome 10-acre parcel. I'll just use Tuttle Road as my example because I know there's a couple out there right now. Beautiful looking. Wow, boy, would I ever love to have a house back there. But we find out that, the soils are solid clay. Ugh. Or we have high water table. And we got to make sure that this small or special drain field that is ultimately allowed on this difficult parcel is the best that it can be before we try to put it into the earth. So engineered systems are typically utilized on lots that have been previously denied or that present a newly listed vacant land that presents big challenges. Like, oh my God, no way. Back in the day, we would just hold up the sign of the cross and say, hey, give it back to the Indians. There's no way you're going to build a house back there. But now with the technology that we have with the sand filters and ATUs and engineered humped up systems and all the gadgets that we have, it does bring a lot of those parcels that were previously thought of as no way into the realm of possibility. So that's where we use them.
Wonderful. Well, I do not see any more questions coming through in Zoom or on Facebook. And usually these things are 20 to 30 minutes. So I think that we can wrap up for today.
All
Nathan,
right.
I want to thank you again
Mhm.
for letting us have some of your time and expertise, your wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you.